Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Weirdly Cosmic Podcast. I am Louise Eddington, the Cosmic Owl of Cosmic Owl Astrology. And before I dive into looking at Mars in Gemini, which is what I'm here to talk to you about today, I'd love to ask you to subscribe if you're on YouTube and give the video a thumbs up, leave me a comment. If you're listening on iTunes or wherever you prefer to listen to podcasts, I'd love it if you would leave me a review on iTunes, hopefully 5-star. Now, I will be sharing charts on this, so if you're in listen-only mode, I will try and describe what I'm looking at. But today in this video or in this podcast, I am going to look at the Mars period in Gemini. And it's an extremely important period because Mars is going to be in Gemini for a long time. So Mars is entering Gemini on August the 20th and will be in Gemini until March the 25th, 2023. And the reason Mars will be in Gemini for so long is because Mars is going to go retrograde. So we're going to look briefly at the retrograde. I will talk about that as well. I'm actually going to also look at the Ingress chart for Mars moving into Gemini for Washington, D.C. And I am going to look at the USA's Ingress chart because Mars is in Gemini in the USA chart. So the USA will be having a Mars return. So we'll look at that a little bit. We'll talk more about Mars retrograde nearer the time as well. But for now, we're going to give it a general overview and look at when Mars was last retrograde in Gemini. And then as a treat, we're also going to look at Mars in Gemini for all signs, because wherever Gemini is in your chart, this is going to be a really intense period for you. So just a general overview of Mars in Gemini. Mars in Gemini is, you know, a mix of fire and air, really. If you think about Mars, Mars is action, sports, pioneering, wants to kind of get things done. Mars is speed. And in Gemini, an air sign, communication, voice, the story we're telling ourselves, things are going to get really fast moving. Now, Mars in Gemini, Gemini kind of likes debates, likes to look at all sides, and Mars in Gemini can be a little bit argumentative. So we might find a heightened increase of kind of clashes of opinions and views go flying around for quite a long time as Mars moves through this long period in Gemini. So just be aware of that. And we'll kind of look what areas of life in your chart that will affect. But let's look at the Ingress chart for Mars moving into Gemini. So Mars will move into Gemini on August the 20th at 3:56 a.m. Eastern Time, Washington, D.C. time. And this is the chart for the moment that Mars moves into Gemini. As you can see, well, I'll explain to you, but this is a very powerful chart. First of all, the Ingress chart for Washington, D.C. has 26-degree Cancer rising. Now, the USA is a Cancer sun country, and Cancer tends to be a sign that's about protection, security, and safety. But not only that, Pluto will be at 26 degrees Capricorn on the day that the Mars moves into the sign of Gemini. So that means that Pluto will be opposing the ascendant and sitting right on the descendant of this Ingress chart. And this is exact by 6 solar arc minutes. So this suggests that this journey through Mars in Gemini period is going to be a time of extreme transformation in the USA. Other things I notice in this chart are that the North Node, Uranus and Sedna and Mars and the Moon itself are all in the 11th house, which is the sign of groups, causes, the people, and so on and so forth. So that's going to be an extreme focus for the year. And in a mundane chart, the moon represents the people, and Mars is there itself, Uranus bringing radical change, the North Node, what we are moving towards. This suggests that there's going to be a big push for radical change, for more humanitarian efforts, for things that benefit the people as a whole. Okay. Other things I notice in this chart are that we have an Aries midheaven, and Mars is the ruler of the sign of Aries. And Aries, the midheaven, is the most public place of the chart. Now, Jupiter is conjunct the midheaven in this chart, but so is Chiron. And kind of with Aries on the midheaven, this is like the leader. And the USA has for quite some time been seen as the world leader in many ways. Now, does this mean that perhaps the USA is going to re-establish its place as a world leader? But with Chiron there, hopefully a more healed version of being the world leader. I guess we'll see. Other things I notice about the Ingress chart are that we have a Venus Ceres conjunction in the first house in the sign of Leo. And Ceres, to my mind, is very much associated with how we treat the earth and how we nurture each other in the world. And with Venus being conjunct Ceres in the first house in Leo, I know it wasn't perfect, but we have this Inflation Reduction Act being coming into place with the first ever climate change provisions in it. And it may be nowhere near far enough, but perhaps this is a sign that this is a start with the USA taking the lead, and perhaps they will do more moving forward. That also, the Venus Ceres is in a lovely aspect with the Gemini moon in this. So again, perhaps the USA will take a lead and creating more climate change legislation moving forward. The sun is at 27 Leo in this, which is the sign of, leader, royalty, leadership. And in the second house, self-esteem, self-worth. Perhaps this bill will be so well received generally that that the USA will continue to take the lead. I am, of course, an eternal optimist. The last thing I'll mention about the Ingress chart is that we have Mercury in Virgo in the third house, and Mercury is associated with the third house too, with the natural rulership of that house being Gemini, and Mercury being the ruler of Gemini, and Mercury also being the ruler of that moon. Now, Mercury is in Virgo in the third house. That suggests really kind of what action can we take, what details can we take to be of service to the people moving forward for this year. There is a proviso, though, that that Mercury in Virgo is all in an almost exact opposition to Neptune in Pisces, in that ninth house of truth and higher knowledge. So there's still this possibility of some mixed communication, mixed messages, some sleight of message, some not being able to kind of, some trickery, some deception, and so on and so forth. So, there are some downsides to this, but whilst it's a very powerful chart and it's going to bring, likely to bring extreme change, I'm very hopeful when I look at this Ingress chart. Now I'm actually just going to put in the US Sibley chart, and I'm actually going to look at 2 USA charts because, and I know there's several, so anybody who's watching this who goes, well, I prefer this chart, a lot of what I'm going to say is applicable to every chart. But in the Sibley chart, which is often most commonly used, but a lot of astrologers don't like, this moon, this puts the moon and Mars and Sedna and Uranus and the North Node in the 6th house of service. But the moon, which represents the people, is on Uranus. Radical change. And the moon is going to be on Uranus no matter which chart we use. So I think we have very radical change coming in the USA. Of course, the USA is still experiencing its Pluto return. We looked at Pluto in the Ingress chart, and Pluto is just past the 2nd pass, but during this year during the Mars in Gemini transit, will actually make the 3rd exact pass of the USA's Pluto return, which in itself is a huge time of transformation. But what about Mars itself? Mars in Gemini is in that 6th house. Service, details, get to work, do the bills, be useful, find meaning, and so on and so forth. Pallas Athena in the Ingress chart is on the Mars of the USA. And I'll talk about the retrograde a little bit in a minute when I've finished looking at the aspects to this chart. And the second chart will be a bit quicker. But Pallas Athena is the strategist. She is the wise warrior. And I love that she's the cosmic owl. I love that she's on the Mars of the USA chart, no matter which chart we look at in this. This suggests that there's going to be a great drive to create strategies to move forward, to fight for change, good change, okay? Anything else I notice in this? Mercury, we do have Mercury in Virgo is just a degree away of conjunction with that, with the Neptune of the USA, and Neptune itself opposing Neptune of the USA, and retrograde coming back to oppose it. Again, what's true, finding the truth is going to be hard, I think, during this Mercury transit as well. And there's going to be a lot of sleight of hand, deception, slippery words. We see that happening already. If we swap this chart out, the Sibley chart, which has 12 degrees Sagittarius rising, and incidentally that meant the moon was on the descendant of open enemies, and how we talk to our open enemies. If we change that out to a Gemini rising chart, which some people use, that means that the moon itself is on the ascendant of the USA, again with that Uranus there. And that again suggests what we're putting out in the world. You know, we're going to make radical changes to what we put out in the world. If we use this chart, that means the transit of Mars begins in the USA's 12th house, which suggests, you know, hidden enemies coming out of the woodwork again. I think we can see some of that happening already. But I don't want to stick just to the USA, so I'm going to go back to the Ingress chart generally and just talk about the history of Mars retrograde in Gemini. Now, the last time that Mars retrograded fully in Gemini was in 1943, when Mars stationed retrograde at 22 degrees of Gemini and went back to 4 degrees of Gemini. This time, the retrograde is following a similar path. So it retrogrades at 25 degrees of Gemini and goes back to 8 Gemini from October the 30th to January the 12th, 2023. Now, in 1943, we were coming to the end of the war, thankfully, World War II. But there was, you know, an awful lot going on. Adolf Hitler declared total war against the Allies during that period. But Soviets broke the long siege of Leningrad by Nazi Germany. The German Sixth Army surrendered after the Battle of Stalingrad, creating a major turning point during World War II. You could look up the history on thisday.com yourself if you like. For 1943, but you know, there was definitely an air of turning points towards the end of the war, and that itself gives me a little bit of hope about this chaos that we've got in the world going on at the moment. That the last time Mars retrograded in Gemini and spent this long period in Gemini, there was major turning points. Okay. In October of that year, Italy declared war on former Axis partner Germany, and we actually had streptomycin, the first antibiotic remedy for tuberculosis, isolated by researchers that year too. And Gemini is very much kind of about the lungs and science as well. So you get an idea of the last long period of Mars in Gemini and what that meant. So now I'm just going to stop the share and we are going to talk about what it means for you. Now, instead of talking about Aries for the first time, I'm going to talk about Gemini, seeing as Mars is retrograde in Gemini. Now, I would like you to look, not just think of your sun sign. If you know your rising sign, look at your rising sign. If you know your chart, please look at where Gemini is in your chart. If you only know your sun sign, listen to your sun sign, because all will have some impact. Okay, but it's most accurate if you know your own chart and know where Gemini is in your chart. The symbol for Gemini is 2 uprights and 2 kind of balances across the top and bottom. You can create a free chart either on astro.com, or the site I prefer for free is astro-seek.com. Okay, free charts can be created on those. You can find where Gemini is in your chart, and that will be a huge emphasis for this whole period. Remembering again that that's from August the 20th till March the 25th of next year. All right. So Gemini, for you, this Gemini rising, that is, for you, this will be in your first house. So this is about your identity. This is about what you're putting out in the world. This is about who you are. So a lot of that is up for review. You'll be changing perceptions, thinking a lot about it, perhaps speaking out more assertively for yourself. Gemini tends to be a little bit of a mercurial kind of taking on other people's opinions kind of thing. I think Mars in Gemini for you for this long period is you thinking about not taking on other people's opinions and saying, this is who I am and this is what I think. For Cancer, this for you is in the most hidden place of your chart. There's going to be a lot of spiritual seeking, a lot of perhaps meditation, a lot of tuning into listening to your intuition and your inner voice during this whole period, and perhaps a lot of reflection on what people think of you, and of standing up for yourself against that, and not kind of taking on people's opinions so much as well for you. For Leo, this for you is going to be a whole period about causes. What do I want to speak up for? What do I want to shout up for? What groups do I want to speak for? This could be very political for you. It could be you kind of speaking up more assertively for groups and causes, and or friend groups even, or speaking up in friend groups. Also not bowing to peer pressure as well, and saying, no, you know, what I have to say really matters. This is kind of speak and even if your voice shakes kind of energy. So that's for Leo rising. For Virgo rising or Virgo sun, this is about your public reputation. This is about your voice out in the world, speaking more directly, more assertively. If you run your own business, you know, you may come up with a new marketing plan, or you may be kind of more publicly visible and kind of changing as well how you speak up for yourself publicly. For Libra rising, this is all about exploration of truth, higher truths, perhaps learning about other cultures, perhaps a lot of travel as well. Perhaps, you know, Mars might say, I'm thinking I want to go and explore that. But it's definitely about exploring other belief systems, other cultures, and so on, whether you do it in person or in the mind, and also about speaking up more and more for your own truth. Scorpio rising, this for you is more of an inner exploration, the deep psyche, but also some of your deepest, more deeply bonded relationships, and kind of being a little bit more assertive in those. But it could also bring some power plays for you if it's going through. For Scorpio rising, you know, it could come at you a little bit with a little bit of aggression coming from others, and so just be mindful of that, and know that if that does come at you, it's really not yours, it's theirs. For Sagittarius, this is going to be affecting your Sagittarius rising, that is. This is going to be affecting your significant relationships, all right? It's going to be also all significant relationships, business relationships, good friends. You might be having a tendency to say, no, I'm not going to be compromising myself for you as I have done before. What you think about me, I'm not going to bounce my ideas off you anymore. I'm just going to stand up for myself and say, no, this is what I really think. And in all your significant relationships. For Capricorn rising, this is definitely kind of about how you serve your everyday work life, and really being driven to analyze and get details down for what has meaning for you and how you serve others. For Aquarius, this is for you all about your creative impulse, what brings you joy. Could be also reflected about children in your life, but also your inner child. There's going to be a lot of exploration and thinking and rethinking about what the drive to find what brings you joy in your life. For Pisces, this is very much about your home and your inner home and your innermost emotional life. There could be a lot of internal criticism during this period, and the inner Mimi voice might come out a little bit. There could also be a real drive to change things up in the home and in your most interpersonal emotional relationships. For Aries, this is all about your voice. Mars is your ruler for Aries rising, particularly because the planet that rules your rising sign is your ruling planet. And you are going to be speaking up even more assertively than ever before. But you'll also be listening a little bit and changing your perspective, perhaps more than you are inclined to do generally. And you'll take those new perspectives on board and then perhaps come out with an even stronger voice. Last sign, Taurus rising. This is all about your self-esteem, your self-worth, what you think of yourself, what you think about how you earn your money, what you value in the world. And so there's going to be some big emphasis on that area of your life for this period. So anyway, I hope this has kind of given you an idea for what's coming up for this whole period from August the 20th to March the 25th. That's an inordinately long time, really. August, September, October, November, December, January, February, March. 7 months of big Martian focus in our lives. And it's going to be a really interesting time. So hold on to your hats. And while you're here, don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel and maybe check the little bell to get notified when I upload new videos. So for now, thank you, and I will see you next time.